Salamat, salamat sa RPN. Hindi malilimutan ating pinagdaanan, ating pinagsamahan. Sa hirap at ginhawa, sa lungkot at saya. Salamat, salamat, salamat sa RPN. Noong simula pa lamang, kayo ang naging magulang.
Sa aking bawat hakbang, turo nyo'y tamang daan.
Sa aking mga pagsubok, kayo'y laging tumutok.
Kayo na ang laging kapay, hanggang sa magtagumpay.
Salamat, salamat, salamat sa RPN. Hindi malilimutan, gintong alaala ng ating pagsasama. Sa hirap at ginhawa, sa lungkot at saya. Salamat, salamat, salamat sa RPN. Salamat, salamat, salamat sa RPN.
And gymnast Carlos Yulo gets hundreds of thousands of pesos in cash incentives after his double medal triumph at the 2021 World Artistic Gymnastics Championships. Amid the backlash it's getting, the Environment Department is bent on keeping the Manila Baywalk Dolomite Beach open, but with new restrictions. The city government of Manila slams the decision to open the artificial beach, urging government to hold officials accountable for violating COVID-19 protocols. Our senior correspondent David Santos reports.
As more people seem to enjoy the Manila Baywalk Dolomite Beach, the Environment Department continues to draw flack for its decision to open it to the public. Mayor Isko Moreno lashing out at the DENR for failing to coordinate with Manila City Hall. He wants charges filed against those whom he says allowed government rules to be violated, and the criticisms are even coming from higher ups.
Our attention was called by the Office of the President and IATF.
As a result, environment officials announcing new guidelines for visitors of the artificial beach. Kids 11 and below will no longer be allowed. The area will be shut down for the Long Undas weekend from October 29 to November 3, as well as the succeeding Fridays. There are even plans to close it on weekends. The past 2 weekends saw the highest number of daily visitors. From an initial target of 10,000, last Sunday it skyrocketed to more than 121,000, 12 times more than what DNR had expected. Medical experts warned this could be a super spreader event. Government had previously closed down and penalized private open-air resorts for violating rules on mass gathering. But the Dolomite Beach, it will continue operating.
Even if we have that big space, kaya lang sumobra naman ang dami ng tao. So, this is a wake-up call. Kaya nga nag-adjust agad kami. We tried to really address yung mga concerns.
Kasi ang experience namin, pag may pila sa labas, yun yung pinapaproblema dahil mas dikit-dikit sila kisa kung nasa loob sila sa Dolomite Beach.
For the past 9 days, more than 320,000 people have visited the Dolomite Beach, young and old. Despite COVID-19 protocols, there's no way to know if any of the visitors was COVID positive or could have infected other people.
With that volume, big volume of people going in the Dolomite area, it is really impossible to identify and contact tracing kasi sa bilangan lang, hirap na hirap na kami.
DNR will soon limit the crowd by issuing visitor stubs as well as mandate contact tracing. David Santos, CNN Philippines.
Senator Nancy Binay says it would be better to close the artificial beach for now. She adds the crowding problem highlights the need for the national and local governments to rethink how green and open spaces will work best under the new normal. But for Senator Francis Tolentino, the beach can remain open as long as officials consider the area's carrying capacity and properly manage the crowd. The government sets another target: finish the COVID-19 vaccination of minors by December. In President Duterte's public address last night, vaccine czar Carlito Galvez said it is important to speed up the vaccination of minors to protect them from severe disease and hospitalization. Galvez said 20% of Delta variant cases that needed hospitalization were children.
Ang maganda pa rin po, matapos muna natin po yung ating mga kabataan, at least mga December, para at least yung ibang susunod na mga sektor na magkakaroon po ng third dose after the healthcare workers, hindi po makahalo-halo at saka ma-priority po natin ang mga bata.
Galvez added completing the vaccination of minors is needed to reopen all schools, protect the education sector, cushion social risks among children and adults, and recover lost time for children. He also said getting them protected can make for some leeway to move around, play, and study, as there is an urgent need to address the psychological impact of the pandemic on children. So far, around 10,000 immunocompromised minors aged 12 to 17 in Metro Manila have been vaccinated. Interior Secretary Eduardo Año warns local governments of possible charges if there will be wasted COVID-19 vaccines in their jurisdictions. The Health Department last week reported nearly 13,000 doses were discarded or damaged since March. Most common reasons, inappropriate storage conditions. The agency says there were also incidents of fire in storage facilities. Some vials accidentally dropped. A number of vials had no labels, while others were considered spoiled after particles inside them were discovered. President Duterte also appealed to local governments to come up with the most systematic way to convince people to get inoculated. He reminded local leaders they can be punished for failing to perform their duty. Here's the president in his own words.
Either you follow us or you have to answer to Secretary Anyo ng DILG. Siya yung nagsusupervise sa local government. Ang mangyari niyan, talagang magkakaroon ka ng kaso. And bear in mind that alam mo ang kaso, even administratively, you can be dismissed.
Based on DOH data, over half of the cases of wastage were recorded here in Metro Manila. Metro Manila's cemeteries and columbariums are ready for visitors ahead of their scheduled closure from October 29th to November 2nd. Authorities say health and security protocols are in place as Filipinos mark the annual tradition. Tristan Odalo reports.
65-year-old Romeo Cipres is making the most out of his newfound freedom as COVID-19 restrictions ease for senior citizens. On top of his bucket list, visit his late brother at the Manila North Cemetery.
Bilang pag-alala at pagmamahal at bilang kapatid ko siya, hindi ko siya nalilimutan. Kasabay ng panalangin.
Officials have imposed limitations and strict health protocols. Romeo says he likes the setup, describing it as more meaningful and peaceful.
Ako nagpunta ng mas maaga para hindi siksikan at na makaiwas din sa hawahan, social distancing.
The MMDA inspects the Manila North Cemetery ahead of its closure to prevent overcrowding on All Saints and Souls Day. The cemetery is usually packed by up to 1 million visitors before the pandemic. The crowd at one of the biggest cemeteries in the region is now limited to around 20,000 a day.
Magandang assessment natin, nakita natin ang kahandaan ng kanilang administrasyon, ang ating kapulisyahan, maayos sa mga vendors, at ang tao as expected spread out. No? Hindi kamukha na isang araw, halos 1 milyon siksikan. Ngayon on any given day, 20,000 na very manageable para sa kanila.
Authorities have closed entry points in Quezon City and Caloocan to regulate the number of visitors. Police have deployed 80 personnel on patrol, while children below 12 years old cannot enter the cemetery.
By 28, we will padlock the gate. Ipapadlock namin yung gate namin dito sa harap. 28 pa lang ng hapon isasara na namin ito in preparation doon sa 29 na hindi na natin bubuksan ang Manila North Cemetery. Kinumpiska yung mga hagdanan nila doon sa likod para lahat ay dadaan dito. Why? We have to control yung dami ng tao. We have to monitor yung number ng tao na pumapasok.
Authorities also inspect the columbarium in Mandaluyong City, home to around 8,000 cremains. But instead of on-site visit, families are allowed to bring home the urn for at least a week. This has been the practice of Mona Ray's family.
Unang-una, siyempre siksikan sa tao, lalo na ngayon na may COVID. para makaiwas na rin yung pamilya sa sakit. At the same time, makasama namin yung mahal namin sa buhay, sa bahay lang.
Filipinos find ways in remembering their departed loved ones amid the restrictions and limitations brought by the COVID-19 pandemic, whether by visiting cemeteries physically or virtually, or by taking home the urn bearing the remains of their loved ones. The tradition of paying respects to their dearly departed lives on. Tristan Nodalo, CNN Philippines.
A major transport hub is also gearing up for the influx of travelers heading out of Metro Manila for Undas. Our Rex Mito joins us from the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange. Rex, when are we expecting the bulk of passengers?
Well, they're expecting that the peak or the bulk of the passengers will go here by Thursday to Sunday. And these are travelers between Metro Manila and the provinces. Officials are saying that travel volume have tripled since Metro Manila eased to a COVID-19 alert level 3. They're also expecting that the number will go to as much as 60 to 65,000 passengers in the coming days. At least that's daily. This is significant since most of the travelers are going here only at 70,000 before the pandemic. That's why terminal officials have already requested for additional buses from bus companies to at least address the demand. And the management also vows to make sure the large crowd will not cause new infections. More safety marshals are deployed to enforce health protocols, while all employees have been fully vaccinated.
Our partner government agencies to assist us in this, no? That's why you can see there in the terminal there are people from the Philippine National Police, IAC, LTO, and LTFRB.
It's important to know all the requirements of the local government of your destination. LGUs require RT-PCR or antigen test results, while others only require vaccination cards. It's better to reserve your ticket 48 hours before departure by calling your bus company, if not the PITX. This is encouraged, especially for those bound for Bicol region and the Visayas or Mindanao provinces. Walk-ins are okay for those traveling to Southern Luzon, but slots can be filled fast. Be advised that buses are required to fill up only half of their seating capacity. Also, make sure to download the Stay Safe app if it's required by the LGU of your destination. Once you arrive at PITX, make sure to always wear face mask and shield and practice physical distancing. If you don't have an antigen test yet, as required by your LGU, you can take one at PITX. It's 800 pesos and you can get the result after an hour. But make sure to arrive at PITX at least 4 hours before your scheduled trip.
So far, dito sa bus, mas mabilis, mas maganda yung very accommodating yung mga personnel.
Gusto namin yung maluwag na. Gusto namin yung dating wala masyadong hassle na pupunta ka ng terminal, andun na.
Well, there are also restaurants in the terminal where you can dine in, and there's also free Wi-Fi. Passengers, meanwhile, are advised to just bring at least 10 to 20 kilos of luggage and other items. Back to you.
Rex, more routes being planned since more provinces are relaxing travel restrictions?
Well, the terminal management is just expecting the green light from the LTFRB to allow them to launch more routes, at least to Eastern Visayas, because so far the PITX has trips only to Maasin City and Southern Leyte. And they say that they will do their best to at least launch these routes before the Christmas season. Pia.
Rex Amito there reporting. Coming up on Newsnight, Puerto Galera steps up its inoculation drive for the indigenous Mangyan group amid vaccine hesitancy among some tribe members. And the Commission on Elections tightens rules for next year's polls. Find out what changes to expect. Keep it here on CNN Philippines.
Love is all about time. Di minamadali ang pagpapasarap. Like
Suportahi ang imong immune system para mabatukan ini ang mga viruses sama sa corona ug uban pa. Pag Herbalaya Food Supplement every day. Aduna kini mga natural herbs ug antioxidants nga mopakusog sa imong immune system. Batukan ang mga viruses. Mag Herbalaya Food Supplement matag adlaw. Inyong mapalit sa inyong mga suking butika bisan asa. Herbalaya Food Supplement. Atong saligan aron virus malikayan.
Mahalagang paalala, ang produktong ito ay hindi gamot at hindi dapat gamiting panggamot sa anumang uri ng sakit.
Oh, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa.
Huy, naunsa man ka? Nagbugot lagi ka. Kabalon ako. Ikapoy ka no. Sakit imong lawas tungod sa sobrang trabaho? O sakit imong ulo tungod sa stress? Pahuway una. Ginhawag lawom, ug hiluta ang imong ulo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Kay mausab ni akong ginahimo. Maong akong taas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break sa
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa.
Welcome back to CNN Philippines. A faction in the ruling PDP Laban party maintains Senator Bato de la Rosa is still its presidential bet for the 2022 elections, with Senator Bongo as his running mate. De la Rosa met with Davao City Mayor and presidential daughter Sara Duterte yesterday to convince her to run for president, supposedly to continue her father's brand of leadership. But the faction led by Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi says the senator arranged the meeting in his personal capacity. Cusi adds party officials are not talking to the mayor about substitution, but that they will respect her decision if she decides to seek the presidency instead of re-election.
That is a kind reminder to the mayor about the deadline of the substitution. The question is this sanctioned by PDP? Wala po kaming pag-uusap na ganon. So as I've said, si Senator Bato went there on his personal capacity.
The same PDP Laban faction signed an alliance agreement with a newly registered political party. The Reform Party says it was recognized by the Commission on Elections last October 12 and claims to have some 80,000 members and around 500 local candidates nationwide. For now, the Reform Party says it is endorsing the candidacy of Go and is still in the process of selecting a presidential bet. Expect a vastly different experience for the 2022 polls. The Commission on Elections is tightening rules for campaigning and voting to prevent events from becoming COVID-19 super spreaders. COMELEC spokesman James Jimenez says temperature checks will be strictly enforced at the gates of voting centers on May 9th. Voters will no longer fill up health declaration forms at the entrance to prevent crowding. A poll watchdog also wants stricter rules imposed nationwide on May 9th.
I guess a lot of people will be in for some scrambling in terms of modifying how they conduct their campaigns, because there will be some major changes. I don't want to speak out of turn, so we'll wait for that to come out, hopefully before the end of the month.
We're confident that the turnout will be high next year. We just need to ensure that the people, when they turn out to vote next year, they will be safe.
A limited number of voters will also be allowed to sit down and shade their ballots inside classrooms to enforce physical distancing. They will not be allowed to loiter around the building after voting. Now, get your weekly political appointment fixed tonight. We'll talk about the looming substitution deadline with the Commission on Elections Chairman Sharif Abbas, plus the one-term mayor of the nation's capital, Isko Moreno, lays down his plans as he guns for the presidency. Catch those discussions later at 8:30 on Politics as Usual, only here on CNN Philippines. Substitution deadline that could throw the best laid plans out the window. It's all a very tricky balancing act. We take you to Puerto Galera. The town is reopening its doors to tourists beginning tomorrow as part of its preparations. The local government is ramping up the vaccination of its population. Authorities visited a community of indigenous people to educate and vaccinate those who are from the eligible group. Our George Quiles tells us more.
Some residents of Sitio Talipanan in Puerto Galera patiently waited even under the rain for the arrival of the life-saving COVID-19 vaccine. Among them is 40-year-old Aquino Anilao, a member of the indigenous Mangyan group.
Salamat at may bakunahan. Mababakunahan na din po ako.
Ngayon po, di nararamdaman mo?
Wala po. Kahaturukan uli.
Anilao knows that getting vaccinated is a way to somehow bring back a sense of normalcy to their lives. But not everyone is fully convinced, like Narda Panfilo.
Magpapaturok din naman po. Kaya lang sa ngayon, parang hindi pa. Siyempre kailangan din po kailangan din po naman ng pag-isipan.
The local government underscores the glaring vaccine hesitancy among its indigenous people, citing misinformation and even disinformation coming from different sources. Their strategy, to let the indigenous leaders explain the benefits of vaccination to their tribe members and bring it to their communities.
Takot po sila, merong nababalita, may namamatay, nababalita na matagal nagkakasakit. Pagkatapos itong bakunang ito, sigurado malalaman nila yan na walang naging effect sa mga tao na binakunahan, mahihikayat na sila.
Talagang pinupuntahan ng mga turista yung yung mga IPs namin. Sila din yung mga sometimes trabahador din sa construction. Dito rin sila nagtatrabaho, bihira na sa kanila yung yung nasa agriculture eh. Most of them talaga engaged na rin talaga sa tourism.
The local government says its vaccination campaign is now in full swing, especially with the impending reopening of the town to tourists. As of now, around 62% of Puerto Galera's eligible population has received at least a single dose of COVID-19 vaccine, with 98% of the economic frontliners, those who will welcome visitors in establishments and tourist spots, already vaccinated.
In that aspect, ready na po kami. Yung mga amin namang mga beautiful beaches namin dito at mga tourism destination, matagal na po namin hinanda yan.
With more vaccines arriving, the local government of Puerto Galera is hoping that the tourism industry will regain momentum so that it will help the local economy to bounce back. From Puerto Galera in Mindoro, George Cahiles, CNN Philippines.
More tourist destinations are easing travel restrictions. Baguio City is no longer requiring RT-PCR tests for fully vaccinated adults. The same rule also carried out in Cebu City. Boracay also scrapped the RT-PCR test requirement, but only for fully vaccinated tourists from Panay Island and Guimaras. News overseas now. Oil prices rallied to another fresh high, reaching over $85 per barrel for the first time in 7 years. U.S. oil increased by 1.2% on Monday, the highest intraday trade above $85 since October 2014. The spike in prices has intensified for more than 2 months now because of tight supply, triggering a global energy crisis. Prices jumped by 13% from last month alone, now 120% higher compared to last year. The increase fuels inflationary pressures that cast worries among businesses and consumers as prices of basic goods may soar in the coming months. Member states and dialogue partners of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations convened today until Thursday for the 30th and 39th ASEAN summits hosted by Brunei. Leaders are meeting virtually to discuss COVID-19 response and recovery efforts, community building initiatives, and other regional and international developments. President Duterte also joined the summit with some key cabinet officials. The president will also attend meetings with dialogue partners, but no word yet if he will have one-on-one talks with other leaders on the side. Former Japanese Princess Mako marries her college sweetheart Kei Komuro in a subdued ceremony marking her formal departure from the royal family. The couple apologized for any trouble their union might have caused in a press event. They were engaged in 2018, but the wedding was pushed back after a tabloid frenzy over a money scandal involving Komuro's mother. Mako declined $1 million payout from the government, which she was entitled to as a departing royal, to appease a disapproving public. The newlyweds are also expected to move to New York City, where Komuro works in a law firm. Coming up on Newsnight, other than gold and silver, world champion Carlos Yulo is taking home special incentives from the government. and an update on the controversy surrounding the star of Netflix's leading K-drama Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha. Details after the break.
Suportahi ang imong immune system para mabatukan ini ang mga viruses sama sa corona ug uban pa. Pag Herbalaya Food Supplement every day. Aduna kini mga natural herbs ug antioxidants nga mopakusog sa imong immune system. Batukan ang mga viruses. Mag Herbalaya Food Supplement matag adlaw. Inyong mapalit sa inyong mga suking butika bisan asa. Herbalaya Food Supplement. Atong saligan aron virus malikayan.
Mahalagang paalala, ang produktong ito ay hindi gamot at hindi dapat gamiting panggamot sa anumang uri ng sakit.
O, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa.
Have been crafting the costume since August for their son, who has cerebral palsy and uses a wheelchair. Between the meticulous details like the vanity plate and infamous odometer mileage, it looks like the Alfanos pulled out all the tricks for a real Hollywood Halloween treat. Oh yeah. For Take a Look at This, I'm Jeremy Roth.
Suportahi ang imong immune system para mabatukan ini ang mga viruses sama sa corona ug uban pa. Pag Herbalaya Food Supplement every day. Aduna kini mga natural herbs ug antioxidants nga mopakusog sa imong immune system. Batukan ang mga viruses. Mag Herbalaya Food Supplement matag adlaw. Inyong mapalit sa inyong mga suking butika bisan asa.
Welcome back. A hefty cash prize awaits Carlos Yulo following his double medal haul at the World Artistic Gymnastics Championships in Japan. The Philippine Sports Commission approved 750,000 pesos worth of special incentives for the 21-year-old athlete. He is the first Filipino to win multiple medals, a gold and a silver, in the global tournament. PSC Chairman Butch Ramita says Yulo's reward will not fall under the National Athletes Incentives Act. A gold and silver medal would have entitled him to 1 million and 500,000 pesos respectively, but the law states that the world-level competition must be held at least every 2 years. The World Artistic Gymnastics Championships has mostly been an annual event since 2019, except during the pandemic. Yulo expects a hectic year ahead. He's gearing up for 3 major tournaments. The gymnast also says he's preparing for the bigger challenge of nabbing a medal in the all-around category apart from ruling his pet events. And trending online, a new report surfacing detailing K-drama star Kim Son-ho and his ex-girlfriend's relationship. It supposedly debunks her previous claims of a forced abortion. Mutual friends of Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha actor and Choi Young-ah, presumed to be the former flame, revealed the abortion was a mutual decision through Korean news outlet Dispatch. They also denied claims that Kim Son-ho left his partner after the procedure, saying he took care of her during recovery. The star released a public apology for his, quote, inconsiderate behavior a few days after the anonymous post from his ex-girlfriend broke out. And before we go, a new horror comedy features characters fighting to shop till they drop. CNN's David Daniel gives us the big screen previews in the Hollywood Minute.
Faces, everyone. 3, 2, go, baby. Go, Black Friday.
What could be worse than working at a toy store on Thanksgiving night as mobs of manic shoppers come looking for bargains? What if some of those shoppers were monsters on a murderous rampage? Store manager Bruce Campbell and his retail minions battle the holiday hordes in the horror comedy Black Friday, in theaters November 19th and on demand November 23rd.
It's just wonderful. It was so great.
Emilia Clarke is putting a futuristic spin on pregnancy in her next movie. Variety reports Clarke is set to star in The Pod Generation, about a couple using new technology to share the pregnancy experience with detachable artificial wombs, or pods. Chiwetel Ejiofor plays her somewhat reluctant partner in the sci-fi rom-com, which begins filming in March.
Clifford, how did this happen?
Some movies have preview screenings the night before the official release day, but what if it's a movie for kids who can't stay up that late? With Clifford the Big Red Dog opening Wednesday, November 10th, Paramount is holding all-day early access screenings on Tuesday, November 9th. Check cliffordmovie.com for locations and ticket info. In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
It is 60 days before Christmas, and that is it for now. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
In a surprise move, presidential aspirant Senator Manny Pacquiao showed up on the first day of the COC filing last Friday with Buhay Party List Representative Lito Atienza as his running mate. Pacquiao said he picked Atienza because of his decades of experience in public service. Let's now get up close and personal with Congressman Lito Atienza. He joins us live via Zoom. Good morning, Congressman. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Buhay, gandang umaga. Priya.
Congressman, going back to last Friday, many see this as an unprecedented move. You running for vice president with Manny Pacquiao. Was this always the plan, or was it a sudden decision? Can you take us through the process that made you decide to run?
Actually, we've known each other for, 2 decades, no? I've worked very closely with Manny Pacquiao in his boxing career. And somehow, alam naman niya ang trabaho ko sa gobyerno all this time. So, finally, after searching for a vice president na marami galing sa aking rekomendasyon, ay sabi niya sa akin, alam mo, Congressman, kung talagang gusto mo akong tulungan mo ako ngayon sa kampanya, tapos tulungan mo ako sa administrasyon. You have a wealth of experiences sa lahat ng branch of government, nakasali ka na. From the cabinet to the lowly clerk job in the City Hall of Manila, at 9 years record-breaking mayor, 6 years vice mayor, 9 years congressman. Tulungan mo ko, yung experience mo, will fill in yung kakulangan ko. And for a man to be admitting that kailangan ka, believe me, hindi ako nakatanggi. The call of duty to me is always primary. And from the beginning of my political career, kasi merong matutulong sa ating bansa, ginagawa ko. We fought the Marcos regime against all odds. Pati ang aking sariling pamilya at ang aking ama ay pinadalahan na wala kang panalo, dadayain ka. Sigurado, here KBL will not allow itself to be defeated. Because that I don't dream of beating the KBL or the Marcoses. I just feel that I have to talk to the people and explain to them the evils of martial law and the abuses of this government and why we should liberate ourselves from them. Sabi ng tatay ko, kung yan ang intention mo, then I give you my blessing. But be prepared, be cheated, because you have no chance of winning. Yun mo nangyari, Ria. Nakapagsalita ako sa mga 250 public gatherings. I explained to the people my cause and the reason why I was running for the batas of pagbansa. And on top of that, nanalo kami. So, I did my best. Sabi ko nga, ito regalo ng Panginoon, and I will do my best to reflect the people and sentiments of our people in the halls of regular batas of pagbansa.
Congressman, what can people expect from a Pacquiao-Atienza tandem? This particular pairing, you and Manny Pacquiao, what can people expect from that? And in your view, what makes you dynamic?
I know Manny Pacquiao. I know his heart. I know his dreams. I know his character, his intention. He's full of fight and courage and patriotism. Yung kanyang pagnanais na finally gumawa ng paraan upang maangat sa kahirapan ng ating mga kababayan ay isang pagnanais na matagal ko na rin pinananaginipan. Ang isang bansang katulad natin at quoting Manny Pacquiao, merong biyaya ang bawat Pilipino. Magaling tayo sa iba. Look what I have done. I've shown to the whole world how great the Filipino is in the field of boxing. 8 division champion. 8 division from 112 pounds to 147. That's practically impossible. Pero ginawa ni Manny Pacquiao yan. And he wants to inspire our people and unite our people into action na kaya nating paunlarin ang ating sarili sapagkat unang-una binigyan tayo ng Panginoon ng mayaman na kalikasan. Very wealthy natural resources we have. Pero hindi na gagamit para sa kapakanan ng mamamayan. Nawawala ang pera sa corruption. Kaya sabi niya, I intend to correct all of this and we will provide the Filipinos a better life. Eh, yung ganyang klaseng programa talaga appeals to me. I've been trying to do that from day one of my public office.
That's right. It is not an easy task at all. No one has been able to completely stamp out corruption in the country. And we'll get to that. But let's talk about some of the most pressing issues today, Congressman. The Philippines, all of us are weary of the lockdowns due to the pandemic. If you're elected, sir, how would you manage the health crisis differently?
Number one, I'd probably abolish all of these bodies who are supposed to be handling the problem, but they're not doing their job. And Manny Pacquiao gets frustrated with all of this. And I see him frustrated with how the government's handling. Tapos, laced by corruption pa. Yun na napabalitaan nating mga face shield, face mask, mga PPEs, mga supply na ninanakaw ng mga ilan sa gobyerno. Angers Manny. I can sense his passion to prevent and stop all of this nonsense and address the problem squarely. Ang naniniwala siyang Pilipino yung may kakayahan na labanan natin itong sakit na ito. But we have to treat it already as a regular problem, endemic disease na kailangan labanan ng bawat mamamayan. Hindi yung gobyerno ang nagdidikta. Sabi nga niya, lockdown ng tao. Why don't we lock down the virus instead? Tama.
Now, Congressman, a direct effect, of course, of the pandemic is the economy. The Philippine economy is suffering. What will your strategy for economic recovery be?
Meron siyang mga idea on how to address the economic condition. Talagang hirap tayo ngayon. Massive capitalization of the small and medium industries and then supporting cooperatives. Ito, importante ito. I heard it from him. I will support the cooperatives fully. Yan ang paraan upang ang ekonomiya ng ating bansa ay mabilis na gumalaw. Ang supply ng gobyerno, hindi na dadaan sa mga ahente. Abolisin ko yung DBMPS at yung mga government purchases. I will ask Congress to prepare a law. All supplies of government should be bought from cooperatives. Alam nyo, napakagandang idea niya. And I have tried that in the city of Manila, it succeeded. I tried it in the Department of Environment, it succeeded. Yung kinikita sa pagbili ng mga goods and supplies and office equipment, ay bilhin sa kooperatiba at kung maaari kooperatiba ng mga empleyado, yung kikitain at yung overprice or whatever patong ay pupunta sa empleyado. Kaya natutuwa ako kay Manny. Manny is a genius. Manny is like a sponge. He immediately learns from what he sees, what he reads, what he hears. Mabilis matuto si Manny.
Right.
Unlike other people who matanda na, walang natututunan. Si Manny is a very, very good learner and I have very high hopes. He is the only one who can unite and inspire our people into action.
Now, Congressman, you mentioned corruption earlier. Corruption is so ingrained in our government. How will you curb this, and what makes you sure that you can succeed where others have failed?
I didn't fully grasp the
Sure, I can repeat it for you, sir. How will you curb corruption? And what makes you sure that you and Manny Pacquiao can succeed where others have failed?
Again, I will not quote myself. I will quote what I hear from Manny Pacquiao. Sabi niya, kaya walang tigil ang corruption. Alam nyo, wala kasing nakukulong sa corruption. Ikulong muna natin lahat yung malalaking corrupt official. Sabi niya, I'll build the biggest house. I will build millions of houses. But the biggest will be the mega prison where I'll put all of these corrupt officials. Pag nakulong ang mga gumagawa ng kalokohan at naparusahan, titigil ang corruption. But for as long as hindi nakukulong at nananalo pa sa election afterward, talagang walang matadala. Nakaw dito, nakaw doon. Walang tigil ang korupsyon. Maliit pa akong bata sa Maynila. Yan ang naririnig ko. Naghihirap tayo dahil sa korupsyon. Walang nakukulong. Well, now, you ask me, how do we address the problem and how do we make it effective? Ikulong. The certainty of arrest, punishment, and incarceration will prevent or at least minimize greatly corruption in the country.
All right, at this point,
corruption is the biggest factor why we remain to be poor. Not because kulang tayo sa yaman ng kalikasan. Mayaman tayo sa lupa, ilan lang ang may-ari. Mayaman tayo sa lubat, pinutol lahat ng mga mayayaman. Mayaman tayo sa tubig, pag-aari ng ilan lang. Kaya marami tayong dapat pakinabangan. Ako'y natutuwa. And I am very happy to be with Manny Pacquiao because he reflects all of this.
Congressman, we just have a few seconds left, but right now what we'd like to do is ask questions in our lightning round. So, ang ibig sabihin nito po, you can only answer the following questions with yes or no. Yes or no, at walang explanations needed po, Congressman. Okay, so I hope you're ready. First question, are you in favor of easier public access to the SALN of the President, Vice President, and members of Congress? Yes or no lang po?
Yes.
Do you support the lifting of foreign ownership limits of the Constitution? Yes or no?
I didn't get it.
Do you support or favor the lifting of foreign ownership limits in the Constitution?
Yes.
Pagdating naman po sa death penalty for drug-related crimes, yes or no?
No.
Are you in favor of the resumption of peace talks with communist rebels? Yes or no?
Yes.
Should the country be more aggressive in protecting its maritime interests in the West Philippine Sea?
Definitely.
All right, Congressman, that is all we have time for. Thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate it, Vice Presidential Aspirant Lito Atienza. Thank you for watching New Day here on CNN Philippines. The former Quezon City chairman of the Liberal Party, who was also a vice mayoral bet for PDP Laban in 2019, is replacing veteran broadcaster Noli De Castro in presidential aspirant Isko Moreno's senatorial slate. Acción Democrático confirms Jopet Sison has joined them and will be running for a seat in the upper chamber. Now, let's get up close and personal with Jopet Sison, who joins us live via Zoom. Good morning, Jopet. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Ria. Thank you for having me, and good morning to everyone watching up close.
All right, Jopet, before deciding to run for the Senate, you already filed for a certificate of candidacy for QC District Representative. Can you tell us how exactly did you end up taking Noli De Castro's slot in Acción Democrático's senatorial slate?
Yes, Ria, the original plan is really to run for Congress. But I was informed that I was part of the short list for the senatorial slate. But since it was already filled up by back then by Kabayan, I continued with my original plan of running for Congress in the 4th District.
All right. Why do you think it was you, who in particular, who was chosen to take his place when he withdrew his candidacy?
Well, the party has a search committee, and they adopted several criteria. I was part of that shortlist. Fortunately, I was chosen to replace kabayan when he backed out.
Right. Well, Jopet, certainly you are no stranger, no newbie to politics. You have experience in local politics where you were a member of the Liberal Party in the 90s, sitting as Quezon City 4th District Councillor from 1992 to 1998. You also ran for Quezon City Vice Mayor under PDP Laban back in 2019. That's when you lost to Gian Soto by just a slim margin. Now, which of these experiences do you think can help you land a seat in the Senate?
Well, as to qualifications, I've been a councillor for 6 years. Prior to that, I even legislated in the barangay level. So in terms of legislation, I think my track record will show that during this time that I was a legislator for the city, I passed more than 250 laws. I had best attendance during that time, and I was able to have approved landmark legislations for the city. The process of legislation is more or less similar in the local legislation for the city, as well as the Senate. The rules, Robert's Rules of Order applies. The process of legislation are more or less the same, and even the number in the city council, there are 24 councillors back then, and here in the Senate there will be 24 also. So probably the level of debate would be more intense in the Senate. So as to qualification, I believe I can do the job. As to the winnability, well, of course, I'm banking on name recognition based on my experience in politics, and also based on the services we have rendered through our program, Ipaglaban Mo.
There are a number of re-electionists and former senators trying to make a comeback in 2022. It's a very tight race. There are so many candidates. How confident are you that you can win this election? You've mentioned your experience and name recall because you were in the media with a show that you had with your father several years back.
Yeah. Well, I always presume that when election time comes, the playing field is leveled. Each person gets one vote, whatever status you are in. I'm also relying on the help of the party and the volunteer groups under the party, and supporting Isko Moreno Dumagoso in order to assist us in campaigning nationwide.
Jopet, as I mentioned, you have a background in media. You also have an extensive background in public housing. What are your advocacies if indeed you do win a seat at the Senate?
Yeah, we're starting to go around, and as we go around, we do not waste time. We consult, we enter into dialogues so that we can come up with our legislative agenda, and likewise for Isko Moreno, his executive agenda. I have my own. I espouse transparency. I espouse housing, of course. That's where I came from, and also devolution, because that is also where I came from. But as we go around, we see the immediate needs. Mayor Isko wants to provide field hospitals in the whole country to address the pandemic issue. And just yesterday, we had a dialogue with the farmers. He intends to execute tax cuts on oil prices, and tax cuts likewise on electricity.
All right. Are there any laws, Jopet, that you think need to be amended? And if ever, what would your priorities be?
As to amendments of laws, there would be several degrees. Probably a major amendment would be a constitutional change on the form of government, specifically pertaining to, we can discuss on federalized government or an adoption of that, so that we can provide for a government more near the people. That's a major amendment to the laws, but we can think also of several major legislations. My immediate thought right now is amendments on the budget itself. The most important law passed every year is the budget, and there has been so much talk about transparency in this budget that I think it is high time we provide amendments in terms of presentation of the budget. The issue of pork barrel can really be resolved through transparency by coming up with a democratized budget where it is open for every Filipino to scrutinize and to view, so that specific line items in this budget would easily be available, and so that we can avoid lump sum appropriations, being transparent, avoiding irregularities, avoiding corruption.
Right, Jopet, I want to talk a little bit about your party, Aksyon Demokratiko. Now, there's been speculation of infighting within the party following the resignation of Cesar Chavez and then Florin Hilbay. And this has been denied by the party, but some say these consecutive resignations are not good, at least for the optics, right? What can you say about this?
I don't see any infighting in the party. These are circumstances which are personal to the people who left, who have resigned from the party, but they are still providing assistance and help and guidance to the party in our decisions. So there is no infighting. We do not really see where that is coming from.
All right, so no bad blood there.
No bad blood, yes.
All right, thank you so much for your time this morning, sir. We've just spoken to senatorial aspirant Jopet Sison.
Aron virus, malikayan.
Mahalagang paalala, ang produktong ito ay hindi gamot at hindi dapat gamiting panggamot sa anumang uri ng sakit.
Panamox, antibiotic caplet, frequently